No justice,
no peace.
No justice,
no peace.
Now let me hear you scream.
Okay.
Has begun reading his decision, which may take up to an hour, deciding on our fate in the marble halls of justice. Thousands and tens of thousands of retirees, hundreds of thousands of city residents, people who enjoy city services like the Water Department and the Art Institute, are having our lives decided by a well-heeled federal judge in front of lawyers, $100 to $500 an hour lawyers for the biggest banks in the United States. Our emergency manager, or their emergency manager, wants to pay 16 cents on the dollar to retirees, but 85 cents on the dollar to the banks. 16 cents, hell no!
Terrible! Criminal! Will they work for 16 cents? That is terrible!
16 cents? Hell no! 16 cents? Hell no! I'm not tired! I come to tell you God before!
Absolutely. You know, we are in hopes that Judge Rhodes will decline bankruptcy. One, we believe that emergency management is illegal. We have two lawsuits on emergency management. And quite frankly, our mayor nor our city council never voted to bring us into this bankruptcy. And then we're also very concerned about the fact that thousands of pensions will be flung into poverty. Lastly, this is an effort to privatize workers and bust unions. And it's not fair. It's not right. And Detroiters deserve better than this. And we hope that if we do not receive justice here, that we'll continue to ride the wheels of justice to Cincinnati at the U.S. Appeals Court. We'll get justice there.
Charles Williams, as you heard, plans to keep fighting this regardless of what happens here today. And you can see the number of people here behind us.
I know deep down inside that we're not really optimistic about this because we know what the news stories are going to look like for the next 6 months. This bankruptcy is planned behind the scenes just as everything else, and they bring it out into the public eye after they've already decided what they're going to do. For example, the Kevin Orr and Mike Duggan situation. And this is going to make it easier for Mike Duggan to pretend that the money that he's brought to Detroit is going to save everything, thank God for the bankruptcy, because he's got better places to put it. The city has never been anything without the workers. The city establishes itself by gaining people who are willing to work and gain from it. But once you let corporations and fascists control your city, once they use you enough to gain what they need, they don't want to need you anymore. They don't want to have you work for them anymore. They want to switch you out for people who they think will increase their trade abilities. You've been those people. It's time more than ever to create resilience with you and your fellow city workers so that you can protect your home, so that you can protect your food supply, so that you can protect your water supply. Join with the activists, join with the social justice movements that have been out here fighting for you. It's time more than that, for that, more than ever. Sometimes you can gain more away from the machine. There's never been a better time to depend on each other because we have more than ever, regardless of whether or not we can still depend on the city for that. I appreciate all the workers for coming out. I think there's totally hope for time. This is the same thing that's happened. We've seen this happen without the bankruptcy stories, without all eyes on DC, without all eyes on San Francisco, but we've seen this happen in urban cities that were built on the backs of people of color all across the nation. The United States is turning on itself right now. That's why they're advertising this story throughout the country. That's why the whole world has got its eyes on Detroit. Because America wants to compete with countries like Dubai. They want to have the quote-unquote world-class city. Soon there'll be people from all around the world coming into our city. We need to create resilience amongst ourselves, band together with your fellow workers, and protect each other, and protect our rights to stay in the home that we serve.
2 years ago,
AFSCME, along with the coalition of unions in the city of Detroit, negotiated with the city of Detroit and to save, along with police and fire, to save $187 million. The city never implemented that money, those savings. So here we are today saying that we're in bankruptcy when we know that's not the truth.
This is a ploy to steal all of the assets from the city, which will affect our pensions and the pensions of those people who are still working. Now, Governor Snyder was asked, well, how are you affording to pay a financial manager? Well, he has a slush fund for that. If there was really a debt that needed to be paid by the city of Detroit, why couldn't he use that fund to offset the debt? I think all of this is fraud.
Good morning, my fellow brothers and sisters. I'm Sherry Gay Danyogo, a former Detroit Public Schools science teacher, 6th through 8th grade, highly qualified, that endured the stress and trauma of being under 3 emergency managers. Robert Bob, brought in by Jennifer Granholm, Roy Roberts, and then Jack Martin. They have all increased the deficit in their being in the Detroit Public Schools. They have not done anything but dismantle our schools. And because they've been able to turn the general public against our schools. I went to a school board meeting 2 nights ago. It was empty. It's empty because the people don't believe that we have any power to do anything. And so they've been able to throw children out of Oakman School, a school for the deaf and the physically challenged. Throw them out the school to go anywhere. They shove kids in the same classroom that are different grades. That is wrong. They have now taken Davis Aerospace building at the Detroit City Airport. Watch the 3-card Monty, because the school system is now going to sell it to Detroit to pay off a debt. What about all the utility companies that have been grandfathered in to receive tax abatement from the city? But you take a school from our babies, a school that will allow them to enter aviation, you throw them out of that building and displace them and send them to the building at Go Lightly and dismantle their education, causing irreparable harm. We must stand united for our children. They brought in the Education Achievement Authority, an experiment, a failure from the start. They brought in John Covington from Kansas, who failed and destroyed the school system in Kansas, and then he comes here to destroy our children. You gotta see how this is all connected. If you destroy the education of the future of our city, and then you take away the pension of our seniors, and then you take away the ability for people to work and have equitable wages, you have crushed the lifeline of our city. We must stand united. We must fight back. We cannot allow them to take our schools, our pensions, our city assets, and or to hurt our seniors. We stand united in solidarity. The only way to stop these attacks is to get a majority in the legislature for 2014. The way that they've been able to do this during the lame duck session, they reversed when we repealed the emergency manager law. They gave us another emergency manager law because they have more red seats. It's just that simple. If we don't get the majority, we cannot turn what they're doing around. Snyder has been the most lethal governor in the history of Michigan, using the legislature as a weapon against us. We must stand up and fight back and make sure that we take Democratic seats, put pressure on Lon Johnson to open up the Detroit office so that we can get organized and mobilize our people. We should hear the marching orders loud and clear. We should not be wondering which way our party is going. It is time to take the House and the Senate. I hope we get the governor in, but if we don't, we cannot rest until we take the majority of the blue seats for 2014. We must do it. We must stand united, work on somebody's campaign, and make sure we take those seats for the House and the Senate. God bless you, my brothers and sisters.
No justice, no peace. No justice.
No peace.
Now let me hear you scream.
I'm currently editor of the Voice of Detroit and a long time also reporter for the Michigan Citizen newspaper. And what I want to talk about today is the criminal neglect that Kevin Orr, Governor Snyder, the U.S. Department of Justice, and others have carried out in failing to investigate obviously criminal pension obligation certificate debt that I covered for the Citizen in 2005. It started out at $1.4 billion. It's now $2.8 billion. The city's chief financial officer, Sean Wardlow, negotiated that debt with criminal global banks, UBS, AG, and its minority partner, Sieber, Branford, and Shank. 9 months later, Sean Wardlow took a position with SBS. He was just here in Detroit speaking at the Wayne State Law School Forum about bankruptcy, municipal bankruptcies. He is a cause, along with UBS and SBS. He claimed nobody knew the market was going to go south. No, the market was going to crash in 2008. In fact, I covered every detail of the city council hearings on that loan, and everybody raised that. Sister Joanne Watson asked, what happens if the market goes south, if the economy sours because of the war in Iraq and competition from automakers across the world? Sharon McPhail said at the time that this is one of the 7 deadly sins of municipal finance. All sorts of cities across the country have been waylaid by such loans due to Wall Street's greed. And it was absolute greed. There's no question there's criminal fraud involved here. How do you negotiate? How do you obligate the city to $2.8 billion worth of debt and then go and take a position with the lender the same year and not get charged? Bobby Kilpatrick's in prison. He was the mayor then. But Sean Wardlow, UBS officials, many of whom are already in prison globally for their extreme breaking of interest rates, all sorts of other fraudulent practices, and SBS, which carries much of the city's debt right now, Sieber, Branford, and Shank, and who knows how much of that is criminally done. Kevin Orr refused when I asked him several times at press conferences to investigate. He's obligated under Public Act 436 to investigate any criminal conduct that led to this crisis. And that was clearly criminal conduct. I reported it to the judge. I filed an objection, an official objection as an eligibility objector. I spoke in front of Judge Rhodes about it. All the details are in my objection. The U.S. Department of Justice, I filed a complaint with them. But unfortunately, UBS AG was one of Obama's biggest backers in the first election and later. And it's a conspiracy by Wall Street that is responsible. And for the situation in Detroit right now, they're looking to rape the city through the bankruptcy, take over Detroit, and they have no concern whatsoever for our beloved people of the city of Detroit. So I say we have to keep fighting for our very survival at this point. And Wall Street
Bank for 7 years. Any help that they have for you is a fake. DTE is also taking your property. It is a no-win situation in Detroit unless we stay organized and fight for the rights that we have and to get back the rights that we lost. I thank you all for coming out on behalf of AFSCME, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. We thank you all. It's been a long fight, and we're going to continue to fight. Thank you so much for coming out.